The Vino Geek Podcast, wine from a Kiwi perspective. Welcome back to the Vino Geek Podcast. This week, something I haven't done for a while is talk about food and wine. It's something that's dear to me as, just as a wine person, as in my job, my day job at Lionel's. We pair all the dishes with a wine, purely to elevate the dining experience. I think the big thing in New Zealand is we have to get past this thing of we drink a wine because we like it, we eat the food because we like it. We need to reshape how we view this. These aren't separate entities. These are meant to be enjoyed together. So, just because you don't like the taste of a wine by itself doesn't mean you're not going to enjoy it with your food. Conversely, if you don't like that style, don't drink it with your food. You know what I mean? If you don't, you're having fish and you don't drink white wine, don't drink white wine. Find a red that better suits the dish that you're having. The whole rules of white wine with white meat and red wine with red meat. You throw that out the window, forget that. What you're looking at, and probably the biggest thing that you need to focus on, is light with light and dark with dark. So, what I mean by light with light and dark with dark, or dark with or full with full, or bright and fresh with bright and fresh, is that what you're tasting or what you're wanting to taste should be reflected in the wine. So you can have a red wine with your fish, but make sure it's a lighter red so that it's lower in tannin, it's not going to dominate the fish so much, and just, overtake the fish. Too often, us Kiwis, we just drink the wine that we like, and we overtake and destroy the food. So you can't taste the food; you're just tasting the wine. And this is the typical. I wholeheartedly, if you get offended by this, I'm not really sorry, because you need to learn how to drink your wine with your food better. And yes, so too often Kiwis will take a sip of their wine. Okay, that's nice. Okay, now I'll eat some of my food. Have my food gladly. Oh, I'm going to have a break from the food. I'm going to go back to the wine. Stop that. Stop it. That's not how you do it. You don't do that, because you're never going to experience the food and wine together. This is the whole point of food and wine. Food and wine is to be enjoyed together. You sit around a table, everyone's got their wine, their food, everybody's having a good time, having a little bit of food, having a little bit of wine, having a laugh and a joke and a carry on. All together harmonious. It's not eat the food, drink the wine. No, stop it. Drink the food and the wine together. And as I said, forget, if you only drink white wine, drink white wine with your steak. I don't necessarily recommend it, and we'll as we go further on, we'll talk about that. But, don't have a Sauvignon Blanc with your steak, because it's high acid. It's going to clash, with the meat. Have something like a Viognier, or I'm not going to say Chardonnay, because I know that a lot of people out there don't like Chardonnay if they drink Sauvignon Blanc. Things like Gewürztraminer, and you don't have to get sweet Gewürztraminer. There is dry Gewürztraminer as well. but it's lower in acid, so it's not going to clash so much. And quite often, I mean, Sauvignon Blanc does have the phenolics, the tannins, but it's disguised with the acidity, where the wines like Gewürztraminer and Viognier, to an extent, it doesn't really spend too much time on its skins, but yeah, it spends a little bit of time on the skins, get a phenolic pickup, and allow that to be added to the food and inherently low in acid. So you get that combination almost leaning towards a red wine, which ideal. Obviously, if you can tolerate Chardonnay, Chardonnay is an option because of the time it spends in oak. Um, Alternately, talking about Sauvignon Blanc, if you're going to drink Sauvignon Blanc, try one that has been aged in oak with your red meat and see how that goes. Okay, so now the episode. So, what we're going to do with this one is sort of talk about um, basic dishes and, you know, or genres of dishes, if you like, and tier them, from, just you're sitting at home with your family, your partner, your children, perhaps, and what you would drink, like sort of, maybe just on a Friday or what have you, versus, or a Saturday, versus a dinner with friends, a couple of friends, and then the extravagant dinner party, so where you're trying to impress. So sort of the three tiers, three layers of things, that you're having a few friends over. It's sort of where you want to sort of take them on a journey, you want to impress them a little bit, without spending too much money. Just throw them a little curveball here and there. So that's what that is. You're obviously, it's just your easy drinking everyday wine that can elevate the dish for the first tier. The third tier is obviously the showstopper. That could be the big brand. As I've talked about the big brand before, it could just be a style that oozes quality. So, yeah. But that's what this episode's about, just to help you make decisions, choose different styles of wine, and just enjoy food and wine together. So yeah, we're going to sort of break this into segments. I'm going to be talk about So each segment I'm going to have a little cut just so you can sort of find your way, and you can fast forward to that segment. You can fast forward to this segment. So yeah, we'll get right into it after this. Okay, so I mean, it's winter, but who cares? We live in New Zealand. We do have a lot of fish and seafood around, so let's start with fish and seafood. So obviously, we're not necessarily going to have that like a crayfish or pawa or things like this for a midweek dinner, unless you go diving yourself, which can't pay if you do. But you're going to have fish, right? And yeah, sure, or mussels or what have you, the easier, more accessible shellfish, you're probably gonna, and you would stick with white wine. And I don't blame you for that. White wine, obviously, hard to go past the Sauvignon Blanc. A different one to try is Chenin Blanc, and you can, or where, yeah, or Albarino is a really cool one, and something that's not too overly priced, that's really good in that sort of spectrum, is the Albarino Brothers Albarino. It's a little bit higher than what I'd necessarily pitch as uh, a sort of a, no, but if it's a weekend, you're having some lovely fish, treat yourself a little bit. Delicious wine, crisp, dry, fruit forward, and the Albarino is Spain's seafood wine, so it does lend itself to that style. This is from Gisborne, so you don't have to worry about core, you know, things like this. It is Kiwi, so just fruit forward, really nice to drink on its own as well. Um, if you're red drinkers, go with Pinot. You could go with a Gamay if you can find a decent Gamay that's a good price. But literally, to stick with a good, cheap, quaffing white wine, you know, I would look towards the South Island just because of the weather that the North Island has experienced over the last few years. So things like Marlborough, you can get away with. Yeah, I mean, if you listened to last week's episode, you know about the acid reflux. So quite often those cheaper Marlborough Pinots give me that. Shaky Bridge is a really good option. Mid-20s, really good producer, just does everything right and ticks the boxes. So that's a good little option for a read, if you like. Okay, now if you're impressing friends and you want something a little bit different, you can go Spanish Albarino, really good, and an option for Spanish Albarino. What have I had? It's been a while since I've actually had a Spanish Albarino. Yeah, maybe it's nothing as proper. I know, perfect. Vermentino. Vermentino is from south of France as well as Sardinia, and you do find a little bit on the Italian mainland. Really good option and really good value. It is and this one here is the Aragosta. So Aragosta is crayfish in Italian. So easy to remember. Look for the crayfish on the bottle. Ask for the Italian white with the crayfish on the bottle. Fine wine companies or it should have this, or they'll have an alternative anyway. Vermentino, great option. As far as reds, I would look at things like Barbera from Italy, which is a light, fresh style, as an option. I'm just trying to scan through memory. Uh, Giordano is okay. I mean, probably not really very well known. So maybe just trying to think of something else, a lighter read that's good that you could use as an option. I mean, just go Beaujolais Village. I mean, uh, one that I do like is the Dominique Piron Cardolet. Otherwise, you could go with a Kiwi Gamay. Gamay Pinot Noir even from East Hope. So really good producer in Hawke's Bay, and their 24's just come out. So that would be a really good alternate pick for that. Now, premium. If you're putting on that fancy dinner party and you've really gone all out, obviously, oysters come to mind. So champagne, but Viognier is really good with oysters. And Milton is the benchmark there. So I would go with Milton. But again, you can experiment with these different whites, like Gruner Veltliner, really cool Austrian white wine, very similar to Sauvignon Blanc as well. So that's a good little option. Reeds, go for the jugular, go for a cracking good Central Pinot or even Martinborough, as long as you can sort of, find the better producers, because obviously the poorer years that we've had, you need to find the better producers to get the better wine. But yeah, that's option for that. So yeah, that's fish and seafood. And I mean, obviously there's variations to this. And if you're bringing in a bit more spice, bring in a little bit more fruit. If you're bringing in a lot of freshness, go a lot of something that's a lot of freshness. If you're going a richer, creamier style dish, you can go either way. You can go to more of a lighter, fresher style to cut through that creaminess, or you can go with a richer, fuller style to complement that richness. So yeah, it's things to think about. Just taking a quick pause in the episode to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, and come and follow me on socials too. Okay, now chicken and pork. I mean, when between chicken and pork, white meats. Yeah, I mean, if you're straight up and down, I mean, Chardonnay sort of screams out, "Hey, look at me!" But I mean, with pork, Riesling is a really good option because it cuts through the fat, the fattiness of it, and obviously anything with a little bit of acidity can be good. But also, as I mentioned just before, with the chicken, if you if it is rich and fatty, you can complement it with a richer, fattier wine. And Chardonnay, as I was speaking, oh, well, sorry, not the chicken, the part, the fish part. Anyway, Chardonnay is really good because it has the acidity and it has the body and the creaminess and the richness. As long as you do get it from a region that has acidity, that is a cooler producer region, say like Sir Hawke's Bay or Gisborne, still has that acidity, but it has that richness where you look at the hot climate one, like sort of California Chardonnays, they can be too rich and not enough acidity. But again, if that's what you're liking, happy days, go for it. As far as a little easy drinking midweek, sort of just you and your partner, go with the Cooper's Creek Limeworks. Super underrated, but super, super classy little wine. And that mid-20s, happy days, you know. But yeah, if you have a favourite Chardonnay, tick that box with that. Reds, again, that lighter style, so you could go Pinot, um, where, as I said, Gamay. One to try, which, thanks to its sort of dusty tannin, can work with that port, is Tempranillo. So a sort of Joven style or just straight Tempranillo from Spain, because they don't oak it too much. So it still has that freshness, still has that lightness and brightness. So it can work really well. They are really, really good value. As far as one that I recommend, I mean, there is I think it's Campos Verho from Pack and Save, the yellow label, or sort of gold label with red writing. Good value, easy drinking, go with that. And then it's widely available, easy to find. You're not hunting around all over town trying to find it. And then for that, friends are over, you're wanting to sort of impress with something a little bit left to centre as far as, your pork and your chicken goes, your white meats. Again, that white wine, I would look at Chenin Blanc. Chenin Blanc is a really cool option. It's full bodied, still has the acidity, and just really tasty. And this is the curveball part of it. South Africa actually makes really, really good Chenin Blanc. And the Secatier Chenin, around that $30 mark, good value, for what it is. It's a classy wine, and that's sure to impress. Reds, again, as you step up the quality line, it's hard to find that red that isn't too heavy. I mean, I would go with Beaujolais again, and I mean, if you're happy to just extend that budget out a little bit, you can get something quite smart, and things like I am a fan of Dominique Perron, so around that sort of $50 mark, you can find Cru Beaujolais, which is seriously good, and it is well worth it, but it is still $50. Something slightly less that's, I think, is still really good and really left field is Narella Muscalese from Mount Etna, and why can't I remember the producer's name? Anyway, if you do find it, go for that. Otherwise, the Dominique Perron. White wine, again, where would I go? I mean, you could break the bank with a Sancerre, but they're getting up around $60 now, so I would probably go something left to centre. I mean, as I mentioned, the Vermentino, where would we go? Chablis is probably just more. Actually, here's one for you. A Rhone white. So, your Cote de Rhone, you can actually get Cote de Rhone white. It's a combination of Viognier, Grenache Blanc, and a few other different varieties. Really cool little option. There's a mustard Brissard is really, really tasty option and good price too, not expensive, around that mid-20s mark. So that's a great option. As far as sort of your elevated special dinner party event, I mean, white wine obviously, top end Chardonnay, you can't go wrong, as I mentioned, Chablis or white Burgundy. I mean, if you got the price, if you got the budget to splash. Otherwise, you go to, Kiwi Chardonnays will work every day of the week. So, things like, I don't need to give you an example of that because there's plenty out there. Reds, again, Pinot Noir. I mean, Kiwis like the Pinot Noir, so go with Pinot Noir. And again, there's a myriad of different options. I don't need to give you one or two, but if I am going to throw something out there, Doctor's Flat, rockstar, showstopper, without the elevated name, if you like. But you look at all the reviews, the critics, everything else, it's top draw. So yeah, that's the chicken and pork. Again, with that, if you're, there's a bit of spice, go fruitier, less oak, less tannin. If it's a lighter, fresher salad dish, obviously go lighter, fresher. This is where sort of an oak Sauvignon Blanc could come in to play or what have you. So yeah, just things to think about. Okay, nice. We'll go. So it's weird that it didn't come up with the normally counts down, but it didn't count down right there. So red meat. So we will sort of break it down. We will go lamb and then into beef. So if you're having lamb, Pinot Noir, Syrah is a really good option. A lighter style Shirazes can work, and it really depends on the style. Tempranillo, as I mentioned before, Montepulciano or Chianti can work, Valpolicella. These are all really cool different options. I mean, as far as red meat. White meat, white wine, obviously it's hard, because of the tannin. The meatiness, you need the tannin. I've long felt that Chardonnay is an option for lamb, but it's got to be the right dish. And obviously rosé can come in when you're talking about red wine. So red meat. Rosé is an option for a white wine alternative, if you like. The same with chilled reds. Chilled reds, you end up emphasizing the acidity and lessening the tannin, so it gives the perception of a white wine more than a red wine. So that's something to think about. As far as sort of a recommendation wine-wise for lamb, where would I go to for a really good value option? Actually, one that, again, left field and the same producer as the Chardonnay, but the Cooper's Creek Chalk Ridge Syrah is just really good example of Syrah without breaking the bank. Just tick, tick, tick. You know what you're getting. And that's really what you want. You want something that delivers at what you're looking for. Okay, so that's your quaffer. Then you step up to that, again, the friends are coming over, you want to impress them with something a little bit different. And as far as this goes, I mean, one that's a really cool option that's sort of a little bit left field, but not very left field. It is Cabernet Franc, but from the Loire. So Chinon from Cabernet Franc is lighter, fresher. So, obviously, if you're going super heavy with the lamb, it won't quite work. You might want something a little bit fuller, but this is a really cool little funky option just to play with and really play with their heads because there's enough of everything going on there, but it's light and fresh and it's Cabernet. As far as your elevated dinner party goes, again, it's hard to go past Pinot Noir, but again, leaning into this whole Syrah thing, Tomato Bullnose. If you haven't had it, find it, chase it down, and go for it because, again, it's a lighter, more perfumed, fresher style, but still at a level that's hard to replicate else, it's just special, the bullnose. So, yeah, that's where I'd go for that elevated dinner party. Now, for beef, beef a little bit denser, a little bit fuller. Go with things like, this is where Malbec to me comes right into play from Argentina, or Shiraz, and, you can't go wrong with Aussie Shirazes. But go with an Argentine Malbec, something like Septima, uh, really good producer, and I can't remember the name of it here, but around that early 20s mark, you can get a really good Septima Malbec, just easy drinking. Otherwise, you can just lift it up a little bit, sort of $5 or $6, and you get something called Animal. I know it's actually that's a bit more the Hay Malbec, a little bit richer, a little bit fuller. It's a great option. Then moving to your not dinner party, but friends are coming over. This is where you could go with something like a Vachera or something from Côte de Rhône, or of Côte de Rhône, from the Rhone Valley. Zinfandel is a really cool little play, and Primitivo is something that's I think is very cool. And there's one called Lyrica Primitivo from and it's JK14 wine, and that's really cool, really really tasty wine that will really go well for uh, friends coming over. As far as that next year, special dinner party, again, this sort of depends on where you want to lean, whether you want to go with something like a fancy Bordeaux or a really seriously good Merlot Cabernet from New Zealand. I mean, the word's your oyster with beef, really. Any red really ticks the box. But, we as a country have grown up drinking Australian reds, so why not a seriously good stonking Australian red, likes of, and I'm going to mention them, and I've mentioned them before in the past, but Brock and Shack. Their Jack Harrison Shiraz is seriously special, especially the 16. Had the 18, not as good as the 16, but the 16 is superb, and you can still find it. So track that one down. Obviously, if you can't find that, rest on your favourites, and that'll get you through. If you're not a meat eater and you're going veggie, I will talk about that after this. What's going on here? Okay, so hoping this is still recording. Vegetables. So cauliflower, roasted cauliflower is all the rage at the moment, and for me, this is really just taking a quick pause in the episode to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, and come and follow me on socials too. Okay, so vegetables. So roasted cauliflower has become a big thing of late. And one thing I've found is that, your fuller white wines do really well with it, but ones that haven't been spent too much time or too over virgin oak and have a little bit of fruit and sort of floral characters. So Viognier or wines with Viognier or a lenience towards that is really good. They're really smart wine pairings with that. And the Two Rivers Field Blend is a great little option, a cracking little option. Maybe not necessarily for your just midweek dinner. You'd probably look at something like, I mean, I'd go with, say, the Odyssey Chardonnay is a great little option. It's from Gisborne, very lightly oaked, lovely fruit that would work perfectly well. As far as that, red goes, again, lighter style, easy drinking, something like a Cote de Rome would work really well. Otherwise, elevated, you're not elevated, but if you've got friends coming over, I would probably look at something like, again, if you go down the Cote de Rome route, you could go with, where would we? I'd go Zinfandel, fruity, something like the Three Finger Jack. It's a really good option. Might be a bit too big, but it'll be delicious regardless. The elevated dinner party, doing something a little bit special. I mean, where would I go to for that special white that's got a little bit of richness, a little bit of fullness, but not. Sorry, I'd actually go with the Prophet's Rock Pinot Gris. It has a bit of barrel fermentation, so it's got that texture, it's got that richness, got that fruit, got that spice. Really cool wine. And probably left to send it because it's not what you were expecting me to say. And as far as the red goes, the tough thing with reds is, as you get more, apart from sort of your Pinots and what have you, they get heavier and richer and fuller. So, it can be a little bit difficult to go that higher end red with with things like cauliflower, but Pinot Noir, back Pinot Noir, and you shouldn't have too much problems there. When you talk about root vegetables, like your potatoes, I'm going to call pumpkin a root vegetable just for now, but beetroot and kumara and things like this. Again, depending on the dish, you want something rounder and smoother and just comforting, because to me, that's what root vegetables are. They're quite comforting, they're quite sort of winter, sort of rooted down, and pumpkin is a winter veg. So those richer, rounder, riper flavours again. Cote de Rome for the red or Rhone Valley style wines. The whites, that Viognier, that Chardonnay, leaning towards a Gewürztraminer or Chenin Blanc, as I mentioned about Chenin Blanc earlier. These things are really good options. And I could give you a recommendation, but I'm probably just walking down the same recommendations that I have done already. And then, dessert, again, if it's a light dessert, go with something light. If it's a richer, fuller dessert, go with something that's richer and fuller. Chocolate, stick with port or those more fortified styles. If it's, milk or dark chocolate, white chocolate, you can get away with that lighter, fruitier style as well. So, yeah, be careful with it and just play, if it's a richer, fuller, sort of sticky date, go with something fortified like Syrah, Liqueur Muscat, and Buller or Campbell's are really good producers of Muscat. But there's things like, if you don't like it too sweet, you can go with Madeira down at Lionel's there, the Vet 22 Madeira, which medium sort of style, really good. Good option if you don't want something too sweet. Otherwise, if you're leaning towards a sweeter dessert, but it's still not super heavy, like creme brulee or what have you, go with your traditional sweet wine. Same with apples, traditional sweet wine. But yeah, as I said, if it's lighter, look at things like your Moscato d'Asti, which sounds crazy, but you get a proper Italian Moscato, and it's delicious. Otherwise, bubbles that are a little bit fruitier can work, or even just dry bubbles, depending on how you feel around sweetness and how you like that. The other one is, Germanic style Rieslings. They can work really well too with those lighter, sort of fruitier, fresher desserts. So things like Dr. Lucen or Kirpin from Germany, really good producers. Kiwi style, obviously, there's From Spetles, there's Misha's uh, Limelight, there's the Doctor's Riesling. So there is options around. Yeah, cheeses. Cheeses, you sort of, for me, you go with a lighter flavour, go with the one with a higher acid, richer, fuller cheese, go with something that's richer and rounder. Can have more tannin, more structure. If it's harder, obviously, if it's softer, you want to stay with more of that fruit and that roundness. Um, Again, if it's lighter, fresher, likes of goat cheese, perfect with Sauvignon Blanc. If it's feta or brie or camembert, those wines that have that acidity, like the Sauvignon Blanc, like a Chardonnay, Chablis or what have you, work really well with that. So that's sort of, the food. I could go on forever with the food, but those are sort of some basic rules and some wine recommendations which you probably hadn't thought of or you had thought of with these wines. And instead of me just doing sweeping generalizations through the whole thing, I've sort of put myself out there and given you some actual wines to play with and think about. So yeah, that's that. Let me know if you try any of these and you like them, what you do. Okay, so one of the week this week is the Soho Revolver Merlot blend from Waiheke Island, so 2022. And this was delicious, and it actually made me think of something I do every year and would be perfect for it. So this was quite a perfect wine for this episode. Basically, what I do is for Passover. So instead of Easter, we celebrate Passover because that's what Jesus would have done. And so, being a follower of Christ, we like to do that as opposed to having the eggs and the hot cross buns and everything else. So, what I do is it's a modified version of it. So I brine uh, lamb in red wine in a red wine brine, basically. And so the lamb takes on this, it's like the salinity to it, obviously, because it's in the brine, and so that you get that meatiness, that sweet meat, and the berry fruit with that saline character. And this wine has that saline character. So you just consult the notes. I mean, the colour. This isn't the wine, by the way. This is a different wine. I actually tried this again. Another one I had at work. It was brought in by a rep and delicious, delicious wine. So yeah, deep ruby red, the colour just stunning. On the nose, boysenberry. I just picked up some boysenberry. It was just like, okay, that's definitely berries. And I was like, it's not dark fruit, it's not red fruit, it's purple fruit, it's boysenberry. And almost that boysenberry ripple character. So there was that vanilla tone coming through from the oak, the spice. There's a little bit of cumin that I noticed, which was very interesting. It's funny how sometimes flavors just stick out and you just pick it up straight away. Other times you just notice it as spice. You don't know why, nothing's jumping out at you or what have you. It's just what it is. This occasion, boysenberry, vanilla, and cumin jumped out of the glass at me. Sure, there was the cassis and there was a little bit of black fruit tones in there, but boysenberry was the overriding character. On the palate, it had this, the ripe fruit up front, grippy tannin, there's acidity, and then got the salinity coming through with the combination of spice and savoury notes. A little bit of pepper on the finish as well. And so that combination of everything, just screamed to me red wine brine lamb. It was just, yeah, and that salinity, given that, where the wine is grown, it's on an island, so it's going to have a little bit of salinity to it. It should. And so that salinity almost creates that angularity that similar to what you see in gimlet gravels. So they talk about the gimlet gravels, how it has this angularity on the pellet. Well, that salinity created almost that angularity on the pellet, which was really interesting because I had never really noticed it with Waiheke before. But I noticed that salinity this time in the two reds that I did try from Soho. Well, I tried three, but the two Waiheke reds, noticed that salinity, that saline character that just sort of, oh, okay. Whether it's a palate evolving or whether it's just they happen to stick out at the time. But anyway, yeah, so obviously if you're going to brine lamb and red wine, go for it. Be in a red wine brine, this will be perfect. Cook it over a fire too, because that's the other factor with Passover lamb is that it needs to be cooked over a fire. And so cook it over a fire, and yeah, this wine would be a winner with that. But, braised meats, barbecued meats, meat in general, obviously, but with that lifted salinity and that freshness, obviously, it starts thinking, you think, maybe tuna, maybe some some lighter meats like some chicken and pork. It could work well with it. The salted pork, so things like bacon. Something I actually had recently was so for matariki, my in-laws like to do a boil up, so head around there for a boil up, and it's very tasty. It's not a boil up I grew up with, but it's very tasty all the same. And like I grew up with, bacon bones is the key protein. They use bacon bones as well, but anyway, the in-laws opened a 10-year-old Bordeaux, and it actually works so well with the boil up that this could be the same. So if you're doing anything with sort of bacon hock or ham hock, or ham or prosciutto, try the Revolver because I think it would really work. It has the same palate profile, apart from more fruit, but the same body and texture of this Bordeaux, but with that salinity that just adds a little bit extra. So yeah, check that out. Okay, well, yeah, that's the wine of the week. Yeah, it was supposed to be white blends this week, but we moved on to a different topic because I hadn't covered it. And next week we're going to talk about variety. What is a great variety? What does this mean? Because it's very confusing at times. So we're going to talk about great varieties and wine styles and things like this, and just sort of go through that a bit more. I have talked about this way back, but I think it's time to rehash this and bring it back up. So, as always, thank you for joining us. Sante, and God bless.